Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Katelyn James podcast. We normally dive into everything that doesn't fit on my YouTube channel, but today I am diving into a conversation with a dear friend that I am so excited for you to meet and hear her story and hear her heart behind her business and her family. So welcome, Shay. I'm so excited. Hi. I'm so excited that you're here. This has been a long time coming.
It is such an honor to be here and just so much fun to get to sit down and have a talk, like you said, with an old friend.
Yes, and we tried to do this before, not to date this episode, but before I had a baby. And honestly, it's so much better that we're doing it
I
now.
agree.
I feel like a new person. But so my background was Shay. Let me just tell you my background, and then I'm going to let Shay give you like a very broad overview of like, how did you get to the place that you're in and where are you now? Because what I remember of your story is that you were a photographer in Charlottesville when I was kind of a newlywed, getting into like the education scene, but wasn't quite there yet. And I remember hearing about this girl named Shay hosting workshops. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, someone else is hosting workshops? Who is this girl? And then, I don't think we really even connected until much later through a conference. Was it Creative at Heart?
I'm trying to think. Or Pursuit? It was one of those. Maybe it was Creative at Heart.
Yes.
That makes sense. Long time ago.
Yes. But
Is that
it
like 12
was.
years
And
ago? Or maybe it's a long time ago.
Oh my gosh, was it? Back before I knew that I even wanted to be a mother, and I mean, crazy. But I remember one of the greatest gifts of getting to know Shay and her story is I've loved seeing you evolve, and you're one of the best examples, I think, in our industry, in the photography industry, of someone who was not satisfied with what you were doing, and you literally took your gift and your passion and created something from scratch in order to pursue and do something that really filled you up. And I think so many people want that and they desire that. They're burned out, but they're like, well, this is all there is. You either shoot portraits, weddings, or maybe do some brand portraits. And that's all you can do as a photographer. And you're like, nope, I'm just going to
make something up.
I'm going to make something up and it's going to be wildly successful. So if you guys have ever heard of social squares, basically an amazing opportunity for, you specialize in women in business, like your focus is on women. Why don't you dive in and share how you got from being the Charlottesville photographer that I heard about to where you are now?
And I have a little bit of funny color commentary of my perspective of you when I was getting in the wedding photography scene. So I started with wedding and portrait photography right out of college because, like everyone else, I thought that was the only way that you could make money if you were an aspiring photographer. So I got into that, and that was about the time that you probably heard about me. It's laughable that you would even have heard about me because, guys, I was not big time. Listen, there were no Shay J brides. There was nothing. It was not impressive. I was doing a few weddings a month. I was a small fry, and I liked it, and I was an okay wedding photographer. I think my clients were happy, but I remember in those days hearing about incredibly talented other photographers like Katelyn James and Jasmine Starr and all these people with splashing names and big followings. And it's just my perspective was like, man, those are women who are really actually gifted. And I was just doing my best to like emulate what I was seeing that was being done by really naturally gifted photographers. So that's my 2 cents on what I thought of you in those early days. Is I just had.
That's very kind.
It's true. I've always just seen what a talented photographer you are. Effortlessly talented photographer you are. So I was just doing my best to emulate what I was seeing other people do. And I think that's an important point, right? That was how I knew eventually that this wasn't the thing for me. I was decently successful as I had hoped to be with it. It was when I was starting to have kids. There's a lot of other things were happening during that season, but to shorten that story, we moved from Virginia to Florida to help plant a church. I had my first child. We moved thousands of miles away from family and friends. We moved with some friends to help plant a church. New baby, new mortgage, no family. This is 2009. The recession has hit. Graham loses his job that he moved down here to work. I have a newborn and I'm just trying to take some wedding work, but I have no clientele here and I had never done any advertising. It had
Right.
always been word of mouth. I'm in, a new location. And I find myself in Florida, which has a lot of wedding photographers. It's obviously a destination for a lot of weddings. And I got to meet a lot of them. And all of a sudden, it just became evident in my own heart that, man, there are a lot of really amazing, talented wedding photographers whose whole heart is in it. They really
Yeah.
genuinely are excited about the colors and the theme and the details and the flowers. And they would lay awake at night thinking of posing ideas. And I would just lay awake at night with indigestion, trying to figure out how I was going to nurse and be gone for 10 hours and let alone come up with creative
Yeah.
ideas. And again, like at best, even though I think I was I had a baseline talent and I really did try to work hard at it and deliver a beautiful product. But at best, I was really still just trying to emulate what I respected in other people and saw other people doing well. It wasn't coming from a place of intrinsic, intuitive creativity. It was just me trying to use the skill that I had. So
Mhm.
it was in that
Yes.
season of new mom, new state, crazy financial circumstances, family hardship, just try, what in the world are we doing here and what am I going to do? I realized I didn't really want to do weddings. I realized I'm really struggling with this balance of being a mom and running a business. Like, I don't know how to do both of those things at the same time. So I got at least to the point that I knew I needed to stop doing wedding work, but I didn't know
Right.
what to do instead. Like, okay, I've got
Yes.
thousands of dollars of gear and I've got 8 years worth of wedding work on a website and no idea what to pivot into because I didn't just want to do portraits.
Right.
And I remember the evening that I was sitting on the couch with Graham and all of a sudden, I was playing that game, and some people who are listening to this can probably relate to this, where you're getting inquiries and you're just like not getting back to them because you kind of know that you don't want to do
Yes.
it, but the money's there. And, if you
Yes.
have inquiries
Yes.
sitting in your inbox that you are not answering because you know in your heart of hearts that you don't want to do anymore, you need to stop and listen to that.
Yes. That is an entrepreneurial
Yes, it
red
is,
flag.
and it's okay, like, it's okay. You're not
Yes.
there's nothing
No,
wrong with
no
you.
bad.
It's just a sign that something new is trying to break through, and you can either resist it, and I did for, like, 2 years. I'll just take it, whatever, it's fine, it's great, it's money, I'll convince myself to love it. So, anyway, I knew I finally got to the point of being able to admit to myself that this isn't my thing anymore. But I don't know what my
Right.
new thing's going to be, and we have no money, and we need to pay the bills, and we have a new baby. And got up that night, like just disappeared out of the living room, went into my office, and in 1 hour deleted 8 years of wedding work off of my website. And in its place, I put commercial photographer instead of like, Shay Cochrane, wedding photographer, Shay
Yes.
Cochrane, commercial
Yes.
photographer. No images to share, nothing. I mean, this doesn't even make
I love
logical
it.
sense. But I just,
Yes.
in that moment, I was like, this is it. I'm going to jump headlong in. And I got to commercial photography because I've been like standing in Home Goods. Do y'all have Home Goods in Virginia? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Standing in
Oh,
Home
yes, we
Goods
do.
at the checkout counter, and I'm seeing these beautiful photos back behind. Actually, they weren't that beautiful, but they were, whatever, colorful photos of things
Right.
on the wall back behind the checkout counter. And I'm like, someone photographed that. I feel
Yeah.
like I could do that. And I feel like I would actually like to
Yes.
do that. And
Yes.
so that was like, oh, wait, somebody has to take pictures. Like, who does that? Who would I get? And that led me to thinking, like, what if I just tried that? Like, I'm good. I like styling. I like working with my hands. And I knew Emily
I
Lay
love
was the
that.
only like shop owner that I knew who was trying to sell a e-commerce product. And I was
Yes.
like,
And was
I was making
making
good
good
money, but
money
this is like in the
well,
very early stages of
very
Simplified, like
beginning.
year
Yes.
2 maybe of Simplified. And I reached out to her and said, like, this is crazy. You have no reason to trust me. I have no portfolio to show you, but would you just let me photograph your product? And that went really well. Okay, so I need to fast forward this story or I'll be, we'll just spend our whole lives here. God,
Well, there's a
there's a
lot
lot
that
that happened. I
happened.
mean,
There's
we're
a
talking
lot that
about
yes.
17 years of business. So my work has
Oh my gosh.
iterated over and over and over and over to the point that it
Yes.
is now. So got into commercial
Yes.
work, jumped headlong into it. got some amazing, fun, awesome clients like Sugarfina and Truffle Bags and Simplified Planners, and did a little bit in there, and then decided like I didn't want to do that whole. I didn't want to live the life of like, we need you to fly out to LA this weekend to shoot our holiday catalog last minute.
Right.
I couldn't live that life with new kids. So
And this is important, you were always in the branding space, in the commercial space for
yeah,
yourself.
for
Like
fun.
you
I was in
weren't,
it for a good
yes, you
time. I
didn't
just wanted to
go,
do something I loved.
yes, yes. That's very important because I think a lot of people think, okay, if I'm going to be legit and I'm going to pivot and I'm going to make comparable to wedding income, I'm going to have to get hired by a corporation to be
Yeah.
their corporate shooter or their
Yeah.
commercial shooter. And that's not what you
No,
did.
I just wanted to have fun. And I wanted to do something that felt
Yeah.
intuitively creative, where I did lay awake at night thinking about ideas for how to do
Yes.
it. And what was great about commercial work is you could kind of do it yourself. You didn't have to wait till you were hired to create stuff for a portfolio. So,
Awesome.
when I got into, I did that for maybe like a year, maybe 2 years, but I realized like I didn't really want to do this either. I want to own my time differently, and I had so many friends who owned e-commerce businesses who were like asking for photography work, and I very quickly became too expensive for them because of the client work I
Yes.
did get.
Yes.
And I was like, I really want to be able to serve more people. My heart is for small business owners. And it was through a client at the time that actually said, I think you could just make images, and I don't have to be the only person that uses those images. I'd be happy just to be able to use your images on my website, but then also let lots of other people use them too. And they could support all of my digital marketing strategies. And this is when Instagram and Pinterest were becoming popular. So all that to say, that changed. That became the Etsy stock shop, where I sold one-off stock images. And over time and as the industry changed, that became Social Square's membership, which is what you're talking about now, which is now the 3-year
Yes.
long iteration of all of those years of work in the form of
Oh
a
my gosh.
stock image membership specifically for female entrepreneurs. Our big mission there is just to help more women share their ideas and businesses with the world. So we have every different type of image in there for almost every different type of industry, so that they can do what they love and not being a
Right.
photographer, but have the images to support it and to show up in a really polished and professional way. So that's where I'm at now.
That's and you know what I love, and I told you this kind of beforehand, but my favorite thing about you and Graham,
Yeah.
Graham's your husband, is that you unapologetically have pivoted your life for the sake of your
Oh,
life. Like you've pivoted
every
your
year,
businesses.
every 2 years, I feel like.
Yes. Yes. That is, and I know you recognize this because you talk about it with so many people so often, but that's so rare. It is so rare to choose your lifestyle and then build your life off the definition of what you want your life
Yeah.
to look like, rather than throwing yourself into everything you are afraid you're going to miss out on and then looking back and being like, why am I
Yeah.
so stressed? And someone posted recently, like, the Italians have it right. Like, they don't take probiotics or supplements because they just eat real food. They don't stress out and run themselves ragged because they take
Yeah.
naps every day. Like, they don't go to a therapist on their lunch hour and squeeze in like, people don't do this in Italy because they have chosen
Yeah.
their lifestyle, and they mold their life around what they desire. And we as Americans, and any other people too, but we just don't
Yeah.
live like that. And you guys, I feel like, just are you exemplify the epitome of that. And you may not feel like that all the time, but from the outside looking in, I mean, you talk about this all the time, that you work
Yeah.
2 days a week.
Yeah.
And that started
That started
when?
day one. I
When
mean,
you're,
that started for sure. It started 14 years ago when I started having kids. Because that was all the childcare I could afford. I realized I couldn't do both at the same time. Like some women can, do the mom and the entrepreneurial life simultaneously, and they can do it really well and beautifully. That is not me. And I found
right.
myself resenting.
It's
Yeah,
not me
I don't
either.
think it's all of us, but I think, some of us can do that. But the second I found myself in those early days resenting my kids instead of resenting my clients, I was like, oh man, this isn't my heart. Like, this
Yes.
isn't what I want. I'm going to
No.
need firm boundaries so that I can be a 100% mom when my kids are around, and I can be 150% head down in
Yes.
business when on my work days. So the 16 hours just came out of, that was the amount of childcare I could afford. And that for me to this day, because now my kids are in school full time, I could work 5 days a week if I want to. But that's the line for me. That's like this, just the sweet spot
Mhm.
for me of being able to get into it,
Yes.
do good work, but then come out of it and live a life and spend time with my friends and work out and take care of my house and go buy groceries and also pursue other passions
Yeah.
that I have. So have date days. I
Yes.
mean, that's just, I've kept it. So I've just
Yes.
kept it. And I've always, since I decided, 2 days a week is what works for me, to your point, I've just tried to build okay, what kind of business can support that? Instead of what does the
Yeah.
business need? Let me build my life to support what the business needs. It's like, well, what do I need? What do I need
Mhm.
as a woman, as a mom, as a wife, as a human, as a physical being? What does my body need? And then, what kind of business could I build that would allow me to do that and get creative about it? And that it's been so
Yes.
fun, and we've had to iterate it, and Graham's done the same thing in different ways. So we're proof that it's possible. If nothing else, we're proof it's possible.
Yes, and you're also proof, like, when I hear you say that, I'm like, I'm trying to envision, when people in our online world, in our community, we have, like, KJ community of photographers. I think a lot of people can hear that and be like, "That's great, but, like, I can't make enough money working just 2 days a week." And my thought to that would be, well, there's a lot that goes into how you've evolved, how Shay has evolved to be able to work 2, maybe
Yeah.
8-hour days. You have had to say no to what everyone says a small business
Yep.
has to do, and you only do the things that actually, I've heard you say before, 80% of what people do is not
Mm-mm.
actually growing their
The
business.
80% of the
They
work
don't,
is
and they don't
is
realize it.
creating 20% of their revenue. That's just the
Yes.
likely reality for most of us. So that means even if you work the same
Yes.
amount of hours, you could take that 80% of your time and do the 20% with it and think of how much more profitable you'd
Mhm.
be.
Right. And so I just want to speak to, and I know you've done coaching, so you know this language, but if someone listens to this and the first thing that pings in your brain is, well,
Yeah.
that's great for her, that is a
Yeah.
red flag. That's a victim red flag. And I get it because in my mind, I've even thought, oh, that's great for her.
That would
But then
never
I've
work
thought
for me.
I could do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it would never, yes, we love to say it would never work for me because it gives us permission
Yeah.
not to try. And as soon as you say that's great for her, your brain's shutting off the possibility that it
Yeah.
could work for you. I think about you and I think about how, I have this hour chunk of time to do this call with you, and then I got to take Miles to a follow up appointment. And then, but I realize I got myself together more
Yeah.
today than I have the last 6 weeks. Why? Because I had a
Yeah.
boundary and I had a limit. So you live your life, your business life, with very strict boundaries and limits. And so often, um, I don't take advantage of all the times we have childcare. I'm not in the zone because I don't have to
Yeah.
be fully. I feel like you have mastered, like, I'm going to work. And when I work, I
Yeah.
truly work. And when I work, I'm not going to do work that doesn't really
Yeah.
produce results. Which, how would you say to someone, I don't know how to even figure out what work I should do. How do I figure out what's producing the
Yeah.
results? Like, what is my
Yeah.
20%?
Well, it's a great question. And I want to, let's speak first to the mindset. I think the
Yes.
most helpful question, the most helpful, like small shift that I'm still trying to make in my own brain when I go to that would never work for me, whatever it is, business or life or whatever we're talking about. The moment I go to that just won't work or that would never work for me, I'm the exception. The helpful question for me is, how could it work? How might it work?
Yeah.
Instead of saying
Right.
it's not going to work, and you're just like, you're allowing yourself to just opt out from the hard work of figuring it out, really. Because, and
Right.
Graham
Right.
says it all the time that hustle is just laziness in disguise because you're just not
Yes.
doing the hard work of figuring out what the 80/20 in your business and that kind of thing. But that to me, if you take just one shift, start with that question. If you're like, I could never just work 2 days a week, reframe that in your mind to like, okay, how could I work 2 days a week? And then allow yourself to creatively brainstorm. That just
Right.
unlocks so many more possibilities. And I just think it's hard for us to do the hard work of figuring that out. Now, to the more tactical question of
Yes.
like, well, how do what's really creating, the 20% and that kind of thing. I do have a resource that they can use for that. where I outline like how to
Yep.
actually 80/20 your business. That they can get that at socialsquares.com/CEO. But it's just the 80/20 principle,
Perfect.
which is not my idea. I don't know if it originates with Tim Ferriss, but it will walk you through kind of some helpful prompts to know how to figure out what
Mhm.
you're doing is really has an ROI and what if it doesn't. And that just takes work. That literally takes setting aside
Yes.
hours to do that. But what I'd even like peel back a layer from that, because I think what we do as entrepreneurs is we decide we're going to do something, or we decide that it has to be a certain way, and then when we try to iterate, we're still just iterating within those parameters. And I think
Mhm.
a better question, it just is a little more helpful to take a step back even from that, because maybe to your point about how I'm using photography skills, but not in the way that was prescriptive, that, the way you make money. If you can get yourself to a
Yes.
point that you're willing to let go of what you have and really think differently about it and say, okay, how would I create $30,000 a year or $50,000 a year, whatever it is that you need? How could I do
Right.
that if I had to only work 2 days a week? If I had to only work 20 hours a week, how could I make
Yes.
that amount of money? That's a much more helpful unlocking question mentally than like,
Yes.
well, I can't. Like, how would I ever make the amount of money I need to make in X number of hours?
Right.
Just like my encouragement is
Right.
just like start to think that way, start to ask yourself those questions.
Yes, and I just had the thought when you're saying that, like, as creatives, which is the majority of people who will be listening to this, we don't enjoy, I don't enjoy looking at my business and even figuring
Oh,
out
for sure.
ROI.
It's not fun.
Like, I don't wanna know that what I've been doing for 10 years isn't actually
Yeah.
there's a part of me that kinda wants to
Yeah.
live in the dark. Like, we do business calls with some of our students, and someone said they showed up and they said, "I'm doing everything you said, and it's just not
Yeah.
working for me." And I said, "Okay, we're gonna spend some time here." And I started asking her questions like, have you shown any preview images of what the mini
Yeah.
sessions are gonna look like? Well, no, because it's
Right.
not springtime. It's like,
Yeah.
that's a red flag.
You're
Like,
making
if
excuses.
you really yes, and if you really want to get to the nitty-gritty, that is where you
Yeah.
start to see what Graham says about hustle. Like, you say you're doing the hustle, but you haven't really done the work of figuring out, is your hustle
Yeah.
helping? Like, is it really pointing you in the right direction? So I mean, we're getting ready to launch something soon. And it just is such a good reminder for me of like, Katelyn, some of the things you're spending your time doing, like making this sales
Right.
page look
Playing with the fonts
gorgeous.
forever to try to figure it out. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure.
Yep. Graham would say, yeah, but where's your promise? Where's your
Yeah.
promise, Caitlin? Put that promise up there. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be pretty. So talking about your life and your business, what I wonder sometimes is, being a mom of now four children. That sounds crazy to say.
That like kind of stumbled out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, that's wow. Do you, from a business owner perspective, from a mothering entrepreneurial perspective, like in my mind, I think through, I love what you've done. And I don't want to wait until my kids are 10 to realize, man, I missed the mark on
Yeah.
the balance, on the intentional living. Do you think that there was ever a turning point? Like, did anything ever happen, or did the kids ever say something, or did you read something that made you and Graham say, like, we're not doing things the
Hmm.
normal way. Like, it's not worth it. It's costing us too much. Like, we're opting out of the craziness of what normal life looks like for a family with
Yeah.
kids and business
I think
owners.
when I think of turning point, I think back to that first year that I kind of referenced with Chloe, where, it's my first child and I'm trying to just do
Mhm.
both. And I'm trying to bring this child along into the career that I had built without making any adjustments and accommodations that
Mhm.
I'm a different person. I have different priorities. My
Right.
brain functioning is literally different. Like I'm not getting sleep, et cetera, et cetera. And I
Yes.
think the biggest turning point for me was that first year where I found myself resenting being a mom and like getting angry that my child needed me instead of getting angry that my client needed me, and that was not
Right.
what was coming out. I knew was not really my heart or where I wanted to land. And so that was a conscious decision back then to say like, nope. I want me, who I am as a mom and a wife and a friend, to loom larger in my life than who I am as a business owner, even though I love work. Now, what keeps me there is any season of business, and there have been many, where work starts to just take up too much space. Like it's ruining my mood and it's affecting my ability to be
Hmm.
present, or I'm still on my phone answering an email in the kitchen while we're cooking dinner and it's really supposed to be family time. And because we've had really hard and fast boundaries about that, so we don't work in the evenings. Like when we get home at 4 to 5 is kind of the end of the day for us. When we're all home, no one
Yes.
is working, not on their phone, not on their laptop, not taking calls, not after dinner. We also do not work on the weekends. We do not work on vacation, things like that. So we put these hard and fast rules in place.
Yes.
And every time work swells and it like really starts to, we feel that pain point, it's just a good reminder. I always talk about it like, we've set these parameters and we've put barbed wire fences up. Like this is where we are healthy
Yep.
and I am healthy and our family is tended to. And there are repetitive seasons where I brush up against that barbed wire and it gets really painful. And I'm like, oh, this hurts.
Yes.
Okay, these are those boundary lines. Like I gotta dial it back in.
Yes.
So, and because we have decided those things in advance, there's a lot of accountability there. I mean, if Graham's working
Yes.
after dinner on his laptop, it would be so out of character. And I'd be like, babe, like, what are you doing?
Yes.
With the exception of like
Yes.
sometimes there's a launch or some kind of extenuating circumstance. But because
Right.
we've created a certain normal, that really helps. So every time we get into that, I mean, and I'm in coming out of that type of season now where it's like,
Right.
maybe it's only taking 16 hours, but it's weighing so heavily that it's affecting
Hmm.
everything and how I show up in the rest of the world.
Right.
Okay, something's got to change. Like this is not the
Yes.
best situation for me. So those are the reminders and the road markers along the way. They're always painful, and we just have honest conversations about
Hmm.
it, regroup. Okay, what can we do differently? What
Hmm.
needs to change? And then move forward in it.
And I think there's a few things that I love. One, what's crazy is that you started thinking like this and choosing this back when you didn't have
Oh, yeah.
money.
No
Like,
dollars.
so someone could say like, right, well, you can be that flexible and choose this because you guys are millionaires. Well,
We were
but
on
you
food
started
stamps when I
living like this.
chose this. I mean, I couldn't even afford, we moved to
Yes.
Florida. I couldn't even afford sunblock to put on my children in the sunshine state. I mean, I remember my friend Ashley Prophet, who literally dropping off a
Yes.
bag of sunblock on my doorstep in a little basket with like tissue paper, like just to love on me because I literally could
Oh,
not even afford sunscreen. I mean, that was,
but how
whew,
faithful, like that gives me chills, but how faithful I feel like, a highlight or a theme of your story is like God has just rewarded the faithfulness to the priorities of life that you set back in the time. Like I talk myself into sometimes like, well, I've got to be on the laptop in the evenings because I have young kids and this is just what you have to do to
to
be,
get to this future
one of the
point
best.
when you won't have to do that.
Yes. That so you back in the season where like you couldn't afford sunblock, you're still choosing my family matters more than a career or a business and I'm going to that's the most precious gift I could
Yeah.
have from the Lord and I'm going to cherish that. And I feel like it's been honored and you're taking away everyone's excuses, which is
Right.
which is so good and so needed because my excuse that I go to is and this goes back to a conversation we've had before. I don't deserve what I
Yeah.
have. So if I'm going to have what I have, the
Better make good
success,
on
the
it.
money, yes. And I can't be the girl that's like, oh, yeah, I just only work 16 hours a week and look at all this success. Like, that's not fair. It's like, so how do you, that's my own personal
Sure.
struggle. But what I feel like you call me up to realize is like, that is, no one has put that on
No.
me
Yeah.
except me.
And I will say, because this is important, like there are logistics involved, there are bills to be paid. I understand that. Like I remember I would have to bring a calculator to the grocery store, and as I put an item in my cart, calculate the cost plus tax so that I knew that I would have enough
Wow.
money in my envelope by the time I got to checkout to pay for those bills. So the only reason why that was possible was budgeting and Dave Ramsey. So I have to like also say
Yes.
logistically, it wasn't just
Yeah.
like, I'm going to go play with the kids. I hope this works out.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
that we learned day one of our marriage through Dave Ramsey how to have a budget and what our enough was and what we really needed. And we knew we had all of our money tracked down to the dollar. So there was a season when we first got married, we were living off of $2,000 a month. Our monthly
Wow.
income was right underneath $2,000. And we zero balance
Wow.
budget, like we budgeted out every dollar. So by the time we got to this point of no money, food stamps, moving, we had 3 to 6 months of emergency fund savings to live off of to pay the
Yes.
bills, and we knew how to budget and
Right.
appreciate every single dollar that we spent. So that's just the logistics there. That doesn't answer your question, but that's the
It's
tactical. That's
important.
important. You need to know what to do
Yes.
with your money when you have it and when you
Oh,
don't have
yes.
it. It's interesting that, like you're saying, what your excuse is. The excuse I often hear is, "But I love what I do. But I love. Why would
Mm.
I do anything else? I
That's not
love,"
my
right?
excuse. I'm just
I mean,
kidding.
like in
I
a
do
season
love
that
it.
probably was your excuse, right? And in a season that was probably but I
Yes.
just love it. Now you
Yes.
have kids and you have
Right.
other
Right.
loves. You have a lot of loves. So
Yes.
that's usually what I hear, and my response to that is like, but at what expense? Like, yes, I'm glad you love
Yes.
your work. I don't only work 16 hours because I don't love my work. I love my work. I love what I've been able to do. Um, but
Yes.
I also love other things. I love my husband. I love my kids. I love going
Yes.
outside and working in the garden. I love friendships. I love grabbing coffee. I
Mhm.
love, like I have a lot of loves, and I'm
Yes.
also not willing to sacrifice everything else for this one love. And also, I think a lot of times we use work and overwork and hustle as a means of avoiding hard things that are true. Like there are reasons why we overwork and excuse it for ourselves.
Oh,
One of
yes.
them is that
Yes.
we're running from something, like you have a past of no
Mhm.
income or, just not growing up with much, and you're trying to outrun that, like you're just trying to make sure that
Yes.
doesn't happen to your
Yes.
kids. Another one is avoidance, like marriage is hard or parenting
Yes.
is hard, which is what I was struggling with. Having a newborn is hard. I'm going to
Right.
go hide an email
Right.
because I feel respected and validated.
Right.
Sometimes health issues, we just don't want to deal with them. So sometimes we hustle and use these excuses.
Mm.
I have to do this, or I love it. I just love doing it because we're running from
Yes.
something. So I think we have to check some of the motives of our heart there
Mm.
to know what is actually like driving us into overwork. Listen to
Yes.
the excuses that we're making and really ask the tougher questions underneath that.
And I don't know, I've said this before on some podcasts, but I have recognized that it takes me about 2 days of no work, like nothing, to get into a space, a headspace where I'm like, I am fully
Yeah.
here and I have no
Yep.
desire to work. And I want to just be I'm seeing my children say things and do things and I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it and everyone is just at peace. And it's like, if it takes me 2 days of a vacation to get to
Yeah.
that place, then how much more on a daily like routine, you can say, "Oh, I just
Yeah.
love work." But the truth is, it may be for some people that you say you just love work, but you actually aren't giving your mind and your body and your heart space to fall in love with something
Yeah.
just as much because you have 2 hours in the
Yeah.
evening
You're still
and
thinking about
then
work.
it's right back to the
Mhm.
rat race.
Yeah, that
Yes.
that like
Yes.
transition, like letdown period that's a real thing, and
Yes.
that's why
It is.
that's such a big part of why I still only work 16 hours, because for me those 2 days, I mean whether it's 16 hours or 19 hours, it doesn't matter, it's still 2 days, Tuesday, Thursdays when I work normal business hours.
Yes.
If I work any more than that, it is so hard for me to get my brain out of work on the other days of the week. So I've
Mhm.
just found that sweet spot for me, that so that on my off days I can be 100% off, because that's true. Like when I come
Yeah.
out of work at 4, I'm still thinking about work by 6 or 7. Like I'm still half listening to
Yes.
Graham, half like wishing that we had sent out a different subject line on that email, like or
Right,
like thinking
right,
about something I
right,
need to do tomorrow or that kind of thing. So that's
right.
so true. And that's part of why I've buffered the boundaries in the way that I have so that on my off days I can really go have fun and genuinely not think about work.
Yes, and you have the space for you to enjoy. I remember this is so sad. I back in the day, like when I was in my heyday, newlywed. This is it breaks my heart now that I think about it. But I remember telling Michael in a moment of tension, he was fussing at me for working so much. I remember telling him like, I don't even want to go
Yeah.
on vacation. I just
We
love doing
really
this
do.
so
That
much.
does feel true. I think when you're in it, that really does feel true, though. Like,
Yeah, you
what else would I
forget
even
that
want to
there's other
do?
enjoyable things. And how hurtful. I mean, to
Yeah.
this day, we still, that's a painful thing that I said that I have not completely remedied. Like it comes up in
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah.
a lot. Like she doesn't even like to go on vacation with me. And I'm like, that's not true. I said it when I
Yeah.
was young.
Yeah.
But that is a part of, discovering like, how can I be passionate and creative and love what I
Yeah.
do, but not let it
Yeah.
ruin me, and but also be
Yeah.
successful. Like, and I am saying this from a place of yes, we both have been successful, but the thing I just love the most about your story is that you have built this the way that it has been built for 17 years. You haven't sacrificed your life at all. Like my story is I sacrificed, like I did the hustle and Michael was put on the back burner before we
Yeah.
had kids. Praise the Lord. He broke me of that
Yeah.
significantly when we had children, but I had the hustle
Yeah.
phase that it, and we have a good friend whose child is at the school we started, and she's like, I bash the people that are like, don't hustle because you all hustled to get where you are. And I agree with that because I do think there is a level of like, you do
Yeah.
have to work hard, but everything that you're saying is not
Yeah.
don't work hard. It's you can work hard
Yeah.
within your boundaries
And I
and
really
you don't have to kill
like,
yourself.
I think there's a lot of different ways to be successful. You can hustle your way to be successful. Absolutely. And could I have made more
Sure.
money and built it bigger if I worked more? Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm at
Mhm.
my point of enough because that's what I've decided. This is what I need. This is what feels good. This is fun. This lets me do what I want to do. Could, could I be a lot more successful? Absolutely. Do I leave a ton of money on the table? All the time. Like, have I grown slower than most? Yes. But I've been happy and I have an intact marriage and a fulfilled, like a wonderful family life. And I have my health and my friendships and my church involvement and all these other rich things of life. So, you, yes, could I be more successful if I'd done that? Yes. I'm only so successful
Mhm.
because of how I've done it, but I've preserved all the other wonderful pieces of life. I
Yes.
think for both Graham and myself, so we've seen it in more than one business, two different people, and multiple businesses. I think the boundaries were the catalyst for success, not limiters to
Mm.
the success. I really do think
Mhm.
because of the 80-20 principle that we've talked about, I really actually think that it was because of those boundaries, not in spite of those boundaries, that I became
Yes.
successful, and the same with Graham. So it's a powerful tool is what
Yes.
I'm trying to encourage you with is we think boundaries and we
Yes.
think limitations the same way with budgeting. I think limitation,
Right.
but like I'm talking about, I actually think it was the catalyst for exponential growth because it forced me to
Oh,
make
yeah.
decisions differently.
I just did a podcast episode. I don't remember what it was, but basically somewhere I was talking about I think my children were the best thing that ever
Yeah.
happened to my business. And a lot of people will be like, "What? You always talk about how like, you don't have that much time." And I'm like, "I don't," but they made me get
Yeah,
real
you have
focused.
to. It's that
Like,
nap time grind. You have
yeah,
got to know what you need to work
yes.
on.
Yes, and I know that like, when I'm done, I go upstairs when they're home from school because, I have a precious
Yeah.
amount of time with them. And I think that so often without them, I just got into the mindset of like the more I do, the more I'll grow. And that's actually not true. It's fascinating. I remember sitting down, Jen
Yeah.
Olmsted well. I remember sitting down with her, redesigning my website right after I had Evie. So my first time mom, like baby
Yeah.
blues were
You
really
took it
hitting
out on the
hard. And I
website.
remember, oh yeah, I took it out on the website. I'm like, this will save me. If I have a new website, my identity will be saved. And Jen's like putting the final touches on. I'm like, thank you so much. I'm like sobbing. And and I realized looking back at that season, like I really struggled to pivot from the once was, we call her KJ
Mhm,
1.0.
mhm.
KJ 1.0 turned into KJ 2.0. And there was this beautiful refining
Yeah,
process that God did in my life, where I just realized, I was so scared that everything was
yeah,
going to fall
of
apart,
course.
right? All these people we hire, we're not going
Yeah.
to be able to pay them. We like 10x'd our business. I mean,
That's so good.
insane. And that's not because I had more
Mhm.
time. I actually had less time, but I had to start hiring
Yeah,
out some things, you know? I had to start bringing in some analysts and be like, "Tell me where our emails aren't
yeah,
hitting the
yeah.
mark." Like, and now we have solutions and systems and formulas, and it is beautiful. But so another question. I love this. I have this whole list. I'm like, this is my moment with Shay. I want to ask
Let's
her
do it.
everything I can. Yes. Um, was there ever a season, and is there currently a season where you're just in a CEO role and not in a creative role? Has that ever happened, or
Really, the
is it
question is like,
currently
has that
happening?
ever not happened in the last 3 years? I mean, that's a real
Right.
thing, right? So,
Yes.
I think a lot of people who have gotten to the point of success where they're starting to add on a team and they're delegating and that kind of thing have experienced this where the
Hmm.
downside of delegation, is that now you have now people to lead and care for and encourage and
Right.
challenge, and that you're responsible and you're trying to help them hit their KPIs and things like that. And that started for me. I say really in the last like 3 years was when I really felt like I had like a team. Like, let's say there was 5 of us, we're part time, plus I've got contractors and things like that. And that was once it started, and once it got to that size where I had that many people, which isn't a lot of people, but it was a lot of people for me in 16 hours a
Right.
week. Then if you're trying
Oh,
to
yes.
lead well, which I always tried to run the company as if I was, a Google or some like really wildly successful
Right.
company. So we had monthly one-on-ones, and I read all the business books like Good to Great and Trillion Dollar Coach, and I really loved the leadership side of having a team.
Mm.
And so I was putting in the time there, and we were having the regular meetings and all of this. And so when you only work 16 hours a week and you have 5 employees, now a lot of your time is going to now be spent in meetings, operations meetings and marketing meetings and one-on-ones and coaching and accountability
Right.
calls and performance reviews and all of that stuff. And so that is absolutely what's happened to me over the last 3 years. And I've had to really fight for creative time, and it's been really hard. So the best what it's looked like for the most part is that Tuesday is supposed to be. So let me just give you like the ideal, and this doesn't often happen.
Yes. Yes.
Tuesday is supposed to be like my
Right.
desk office-y kind of day where I'm in a sauna and I'm meeting with people and I'm doing all that kind of stuff. I'm in meetings. And then Thursday should be my creative day where I'm doing podcasts and I'm doing like, and so that's true of this week, like it's lighter.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
because podcasting is still a creative outlet. Getting to have these conversations and
Yes.
connection is still a creative outlet. So I had to really, really, really fight for creative time, for shoot days, because yes, my whole job changed from being a creative to being a team leader and being a CEO.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to figure out like, whoa, 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 like that's not my healthiest self. Like, so how do I get to doing the things that are actually life-giving and really do contribute to the company? That is a real thing. One helpful thing for me was that in the last few years, I'm not great about block scheduling. I'm pretty good at getting things done. Like you're probably
Right.
also like, I don't have the personality that tends to get easily distracted. Like I kind of know and I can make good decisions. So I don't necessarily have to
Yes.
block schedule or be super rigid with myself about like 8 to 9 I do this, 9 to 10 I do this. But I do have four
Right.
parameters, four filters that all the work that I do has to flow through. So I have assessed that the best use of my time as the CEO of my company is connection. That's connection with my team and connection with other people,
Mm.
relationships, industry relationships, that kind of thing. So connection, learning. I need to be learning. If I'm not learning, I'm dying. I've
Yes.
got to be
Yes.
growing my mind, my creative skill, my talent, that kind of thing. So I need to be connecting. I need to be
Right.
learning. I need to be teaching. So I need to be sharing somehow, and I need to be creating. And creating can be creating written content. It can be creating creative content like imagery. But those are the 4 things. And so everything I do has to fall into those 4 categories. So I'm not so rigid, that I'm saying, like, you can't shoot today because of that, or you can't take that podcast because of that. I'm like, okay, does it fall into those 4 things? Is it connection? Is it creation?
Yes.
Is it learning? So if it falls into those 4 things, then that's fine. Great. I'll do it.
That's so helpful because, and no, not everyone. I was trying to think through, like, if there was someone who is just strictly doing wedding photography or strictly doing portrait photography, and they're hearing this conversation and they're like, oh, it doesn't apply to me because I don't have a team. I'm not in this CEO role. Well, you kind of are, because any type of business requires a business side and a creative side. And I know for me, even when I was just doing weddings, I remember thinking to myself, like, I feel like 2 different people. I feel like I am having to bounce back and forth and back and forth. And now in this season, I kind of feel the same way. And I'm trying to get really clear about, I want to be better. I love what you were saying about being truly leading your team well. The truth is, we found out 3 to 5 years ago, I'm not CEO material, actually.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
It really is. I appreciate that you think that I can stay on task, and I can if I'm excited about it. My sister is the epitome of a CEO. I mean, she knows what everyone's doing. She's checking in. She's encouraging them. And I really have had, in my mind, it's funny. I used to look at Laura Casey with her team like a decade ago and be like, I want a team of women like her. And now I've really had to realize, and not in a shameful way, that's not my gift. It's really not. And so I've let that go. She has taken over, but I still have this longing to be an encourager, to be like a spiritual, relational leader. I'm not going to be running a sauna, but I can lead the team. I can encourage Casey. I can encourage Morgan. I want to build up that part of my role. I think a lot of people look at our business, especially since we had a recent article come out. It's like talking about the scale of our business. I think they look at us and think they've really got their stuff figured out. And I'm like, no, I'm over here thinking, how can I be more encouraging to my team?
Beautiful.
How can I, what are my gifts? Like we're working on the sales page. I created a header last night just for fun. And I love that. And so I do feel like there's a part of me that is continually reevaluating, where do I fit in Katelyn James photography? Like,
and I think
so that
I think it's worth
encouraging to me
saying
to
that
hear you say that.
I would not be able to work 16 hours a week if I did not have a team. So the reality of my business, now that's not true for Graham. Graham's been able to do it and work 4 hours a week or whatever, however often that the guy works. He's been able to do it without a team because of the type of industry that he's in, but his business is owner centric. He is the face of the company. So I never want to be that. I've never wanted an owner centric company. So the reality is, in order for me to be able to work 16 hours a week, I have to have a team. So hear me on that. I'm not doing this on my own. But that was a choice. And not everybody has to do that. But also, the dream is not to have a team. So for some of us, the only way we can do this is to have a team. I do not at all think that whether or not you have a team is any measure of the success of your business. It really comes down to what's your enough. What do you need and want as a family? Have you defined that, or as a person? And then what's it going to take to do that? What kind of business structure can you create that allows you to do that? You don't necessarily need to have a team. I don't think that's the goal. It creates a lot of complications. It really challenges and changes how you're able to show up in the company. That's not the dream. So if you're sitting here thinking I'll be successful when, no, there are many times that I reflect back on, man, it's beautiful to be a solopreneur. It really is beautiful if you can figure out your enough, figure out your highest contribution, figure out the 80-20, like what's the work that really pays the bills and brings in money. There's a sweet way to do that. And you can live a very wonderful, full, rich, successful life without a team. And when you have a team, it definitely does change your role and challenge you in new ways, for sure.
Right. And and again, I'm not complaining, but I'm so grateful for my team because I don't work that much anymore. But the pressure is
It
different
is.
with a
It
teen.
definitely is.
It is financially, it's not just, oh, I hope we can pay our mortgage and have some extra for vacation. It's, I
I
hope
hope they can
Morgan can
pay
pay
their
our mortgage,
mortgage.
and Emily
And
and
are
my
they
mom
happy?
and
Do
my
they love their work? And am I a good
yes, and like,
boss?
am I yeah, there's a lot of pieces that really, but such is
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
right? Like, having more children, like, yes, it's our life is a constant
yeah,
party, but every child has needs, and every
yeah,
child, so there's work that comes along with the growth, and I think that what is beautiful about, and I can't wait. I would love to have a conversation one day with Graham about what he has done, so just
yeah,
streamlined. I could learn a lot from him, because I have a owner
yeah.
centric brand, right? Like I would love to not have one.
And some people need to,
We
like,
always
there's so much power and profitability in an owner-centric brand. So that is not to put down an owner-centric brand, because
right,
personality
right,
brands are, we know there's just so much that's there. And that is such
yes,
a great fit for some people. And then it's not a great fit for other,
right.
like, introverts like me that want to hide in the corner.
Yes. Well, and for me, I realize, I enjoy being my brand.
Yeah.
I do. I think what I want though is I want the experience one day to be able to serve people in a way that I could hand it off to
Yeah.
someone and like, hey, keep serving and you can run the
Mhm.
show. So, who knows what will happen in the
And the
future with that.
challenge
But
there is, don't
I
assume it has to look a certain way or that it can't be. Like,
yes,
I love the question, again, not my question, I don't even know whose it is, but like, what if it could be easy and fun? Okay, so what if you could have a
yes.
personality-led brand? What if you want to be the one contributing? But
Mhm.
what if it was easy and fun? What would that business look like? And then work backwards, like, okay, how do I make that profitable? What would I
Yes,
need to do? What would that contribution look like? And that's really what
right.
unlocks like the creative ways that you can do that.
Yes. And one thing that I think you have done, I know you have done, because you've asked me before, through coaching, asking people that you trust and asking people that what would you want to learn from? What do you
Yeah.
see that I have a gift in that you'd actually love
Yeah,
to hear
yeah.
from me?
Well, every business idea
It's the
I've ever
same
had
thing.
came from a client. Like, I am not an amazing
Yes,
visionary. I'm not a futurist. I couldn't look down the road and tell you what I think is next. Every good idea in my
right.
business has come from asking, what do you need?
Mm-hmm.
What would be better than what I'm offering you? What are we not doing?
Right.
And the same is true about, who, as a person, like, what do you see that I have to offer that would be helpful for you, because it's all just very normal to me. So
Yes.
there's so much there to having that spirit of humility,
Yes.
and like, how could I serve you best? What are you looking for? What do I have to offer? What seems normal
Right.
to me but magical and impossible to you?
Exactly. I mean, I think I've told you before, create a raising daughters course and I'd
Oh,
buy
I would
it.
love that.
I,
I gotta wait and
oh
see
my
if my kids
gosh.
turn out okay though, right? Like, I don't actually
They're
know.
already no, you can just tell they're already amazing. Oh gosh, I only have one girl too, so I need to find someone comparable for like the boy
Yeah.
situation is really what I'm freaking out about. But I agree with you. It's shocking to me every time I kind of reach out and ask someone like, what do you want me to pull back the
Yeah.
curtain on? And a lot of people right now in the entrepreneurial space, they want us to teach about how to work with your family,
Oh,
like in
that's
business.
great.
And because our entire family, my entire family is
Yeah.
employed by us. But I realized I'm like, you know what the trick to that is? Julia,
Coaching,
coaching with
counseling, and
you.
therapy is the
Yeah,
truth.
counseling and therapy. That's how we communicate.
That's so
But
good.
anyway, so okay, I know we've been doing this for a little while, and I've got to take this sweet child to an appointment, another appointment.
They're great.
um, but so if you were to speak to someone, and we addressed this a little bit before, but someone who looks at what you've created and they're like, gosh, I would love to do that. But like, there's so much in the world
Yeah.
right now. There's so much that already exists. Like, I don't know how to even find my piece of
Yeah.
the pie. What would you say to someone who, my response to something like that is like, you're going to have to take a
Yeah.
leap,
Yeah.
right?
Just
You're,
try
you're going
it.
to have to step out and try something. So besides trying it, taking a leap, and looking for the problems and seeing how you can create a solution, is there anything else that you would say to someone who's like, man, I want to take a leap into a pond that's very big and unknown? What would you say to someone who just is really riding the fence?
Yeah. What can I say that's new? I mean, you're right.
I
You
know.
do just have to jump in. But I think where my mind goes is if you're at that point, man, what a beautiful, if you're like right on the cusp of I want to start a business, or I want to, maybe you do it a little bit part-time and you really want to jump all the way into it. What a beautiful opportunity you have to do this differently and to do this in a way that serves you and
Hmm.
serves your family and doesn't become this like lifeless suck that just takes a lot of
Yes,
prisoners and like
yes,
does a lot of collateral damage. Like you're at the very beginning.
yeah,
And if you're not at the beginning, then like use this, like have a beginner's mindset. What if you just started from scratch? But what I would say is I want you to just really ask yourself, like, why do you want to go into business? What is it that you want?
right,
Is it that you want financial freedom, time freedom? Is it that you want a creative outlet? You want to own your future? Like, what is it? Get very clear about that.
right,
Get very clear about the specifics. Like, what does time freedom mean? Well, I want to be able to be to volunteer to go on my kids' class field trips. Like, I want to be the one that's doing that, or I want to have family dinners. Like, really define that. And
yes,
then figure out what your enough is. Okay, how much do you really need to
hmm,
make as a family? That means you got to know your budget. Okay, I'm giving you 10 complicated
yes.
steps here. I'm sorry, this isn't one takeaway,
No,
but
no, this is
you got to do
great.
all these things. Like they're all part of it. You need to find out how
Yes,
much money you need. Don't just assume I don't know more,
right,
6 figures. It's gotta be 6 figures, or then it's gotta be 7 figures or
right,
whatever. Maybe it's only
right,
$20,000 that you need that would really be a huge
right,
difference
right,
maker, and you could take family vacations or send your kids to private
right,
school or whatever it is. Figure out your enough,
right,
so know that. So now we're dealing with what your why really is and what that dream really looks like in specifics that are unique to you, not anyone else. And then what do you
yes,
really need? What are the numbers that you really need? And then
yes,
think about, okay, I really, right now, what I really need is 2,000 extra dollars a month. Okay, what
right,
can I do in the amount of time that I have that could make $2,000? And then we get to the point that's what you're talking about, which is like, now you just got to go try it. Like now you just got to test it and
yes,
see if it works. If it
yes,
doesn't work, you didn't fail. It's fine. It's just a part of the process.
yes,
A saturated market means that you're onto something. Don't be afraid of a saturated
yes,
market. A saturated market just means there's a need there. The fitness industry is a great
yeah,
example. There will
yes,
always be money to be made in the fitness industry. So don't let that
right,
scare you, but I just don't jump into like I'm going to build this type of business and I just need to get started and it needs to look like this. Like do all those steps and then you're going to like enter
yes,
into this concept or lifestyle of entrepreneurship knowing where you're at and where you need to go and what you're
mhm,
willing to sacrifice to get there, and then the creative ideas will come, and then it's just there is risk involved, and that comes to where you're at. We're like,
yes, it's
just try
always
it. It's not who you are, right? It's not your
right,
identity. You're just going to try it and it's going to work or it's not going to work,
and it
and then
might
you'll try
fail.
something else. It's fine. It's not who you are.
Yes,
It's just a part of one of the ways that you're experiencing life and showing up in the world.
I love that, and I think a cherry on top of all that that I love and am so inspired by you guys is that you, and this is probably a whole other conversation, but I think it comes down to faith and it comes down to defining what your purpose is. I know because I share the same faith. I know that where all of your definitions of
Yeah.
success and life
Purpose and
and what do we
identity.
want for
Yeah.
ourselves. Yes, identity, all of that I know is filtered through who you are in Christ. Um, but I think a lot of people are very, and myself included, I forget this all the time. But what I love about you and Graham is that you do not look at the world to define, well, what's
Yeah.
normal?
Yeah.
Like I don't experience you to probably ever sit down and be like, well, is this normal? And I fall into that habit a lot. And what normal to who?
Who
Normal
cares?
to
What if it's normal to everybody else,
non-believers?
but it doesn't work for you?
Yes. Exactly. Like you saying, what if you need a business that just makes
Yeah.
$20,000? There's a lot of people that would never even
Right.
think of that being an
Right.
option because it's got to be six figures or it's not
Right.
a success. Or people that are thinking, what is my enough? Well, what if my enough is just sending my kids to
Right.
private school? Like, am I allowed? Some people would even say the opposite end of the spectrum. Am I even allowed to desire
Yeah.
that? It's like you guys, I feel like, are just very free from not living in the confines of the normalcy of
Yeah.
the world. And that I think allows you to live in freedom in a way that many
Oh
people
man,
can't.
that's awesome.
And I love that about you guys. So when you write a book, include a chapter on that. That would be
Okay,
great.
one last thing. We're gonna end on this totally
Yes,
divergent thought, but on the
yes,
line of like
yes,
the role that your business plays, how big of a deal does it need to be? Who are you? Like what is your identity and purpose? I think once you really dial in what your purpose is, like what your identity, what your unique identity is, that can look like a lot of different things. So like I can tell you
yes,
my purpose, my unique calling, Shay, my story, skills, experiences, personality is to be a light. I can be a light in a lot of
yes,
different ways. I can be a light as a wedding photographer.
yes,
I can be a light as a
yes,
stock photographer. I can be a light as a CEO. I could be a light showing up on a podcast. I could be a light at the grocery store.
yes,
So it's less about I got to make this business work because this is who I am, and it's more like for us
right,
as believers, who has God called me to be? This can look like a
right.
hundred different things over the course of my life. Awesome. That's
Yes,
exciting. That's not,
yes,
that's
it
exciting. That's
is.
an exciting place to be.
And it's a
Yeah.
freeing place to be
Yeah.
because it means you can try to be a light here, and if it's not fulfilling, it's not
Yeah.
succeeding, that's fine. It's not a failure. You're
Yeah.
still a light. You're gonna
Yep.
pivot to somewhere else,
I'm gonna
which is
shine my light somewhere
beautiful.
else.
I know, yeah, we felt that way with our school.
Yeah.
Starting the school, we're like, "I sure hope this works out. This is a lot of money and a lot of time," but I feel like the Lord is saying to us, like, in so
Yeah.
many ways, like, "I'm asked you to show up for these people and these kids and be a light, and that's all you
Yeah.
have to do, and I'll take care of the rest, and if it falls apart, we'll rebuild somehow." But, I just love you. I just could talk to you
Thank
forever.
you. You have just
Oh,
spoken over the years and in this conversation so much life and encouragement and truth into me. I mean, we really don't see ourselves accurately, and we just don't have, we're so narrow-minded and we're stuck in our own situations, and it
yes,
really takes other people saying like, I see something in you that is helpful and beautiful and the world needs that. And
yes,
that's been such an encouragement to me over the years, and even in this conversation where it takes other people, right, to like help us to see the goodness of
mhm,
God in our stories
yes.
and just speak life and hope and encouragement. So thank you for doing that as a friend in general and in
Oh,
this
you're well. Thank
conversation.
you for living it and letting us see it so that we can benefit from it. So the whole thing about being a light, like it's working.
Yay!
It's shining over here. Oh, thank you, Shay. I am so
Oh,
grateful for
thank you
you.
again for just the chance to do this.